Hey guys, welcome to What You Sippin' On podcast. Here we try to bring the community together with local business leaders, talk about mindset and some of the things that they do in their business to be successful. So we're sponsored by B3. I'm joined here with Dennis Tolpa, mortgage lender, a real estate agent, Eric Thornton, and myself, William Stiles, local insurance agent. Really want to focus on bringing local leaders together, figuring out their mindset and how they have gotten their business successful. We're joined today by the great Wendy Navarro with Navarro Creative Group. And Wendy, before we start every podcast, we have to ask, what you sipping on?
Oh, so I am sipping on a delicious margarita, my absolute favorite. Great for a good time, great time with family and friends. So cheers to y'all.
Awesome. Cheers.
Cheers to you. Thanks for being here.
And my pleasure.
Take your sip, and then we're going to ask you, why a margarita? So why was that the drink of choice?
Wow.
William made that one.
Okay.
Should have pre-sampled them.
Edit, right?
Yep, we'll edit that.
Goodness. No, it's not your margarita. It's just it went down the wrong way.
I did
Wendy,
make that, though.
If it's more convenient, if you want to throw it over there so you're not crossing
Yeah.
over the
That actually is.
microphone, that didn't look real comfortable for you.
Yep, thank you. One more. All right. So I am ready when you are. All right. So a margarita, because really it's festive. It reminds me of great times with family and friends. My mother-in-law was like the margarita queen, and she introduced me to the best margaritas. And ever since then, I've just really enjoyed them.
Yeah, you're from California, so there's probably a lot of margaritas going around in California.
Flowing out the fountains. Yeah, absolutely.
So what are the ingredients in the best margarita?
Jose Cuervo 1800, number one. And then you have the mix with the Jose Cuervo mix, and then a little bit of triple sec.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what's in this one today, but it tastes pretty good.
It does taste good. Appreciate it.
That is not any of those ingredients.
Shout out to William's daughter, Emery, for letting us use her water bottle.
Yeah,
Or her water
which
jug
will be washed
to mix margaritas in.
before her next softball.
Your
game.
Father of the Year award
Father
is
of
in
the
the
Year
mail,
award.
William.
You're welcome, Brooke. She doesn't watch this anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Not yet.
Not yet. So, Wendy, tell us about where you got started. So, you and your family have a locally owned, family operated creative marketing group here in Hendersonville, but all of Middle Tennessee. And I mean, you have clients nationally, right?
We do.
And you've worked on political campaigns, which is kind of a new venture for you guys, but you primarily work in the larger commercial marketing side. And so talk to us a little bit about how you got here, because you were saying that you worked for the court system in California, right? The Supreme Court, was that it?
Superior Court, yeah. So my career was in organizational development and leadership in the Superior Court in California. Absolutely loved what I did, but I had two small children at the time and had worked there for 13 years and, was on my way up. And I decided, you know what, I have two small children. Is this really what I want to do with my life? Do I want to have to commit so much time? Because I was traveling and doing other things back and forth to Sacramento. And I decided it really wasn't what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I really wanted to be with my family. That was the most important part of me and my spirit. So I decided I was going to resign and stay home with my children, which I did with my first two for 3 years without doing anything. Committed my time to their school, committed time to volunteering. But I'm a business person. I love to be in business. And so got the itch to go back into business and thought, well, maybe I'll go into consulting, and decided, you know what, I'd have to travel again. I'd have to really commit time to being able to do that away from my family. So I thought about what I wanted to do, and I decided I was going to open up an e-commerce store. It was 2006 by that time. I was pregnant with with my third child, who was 10 years junior of my middle child. So it was a long spread. And what made sense to me was I'm in the throes of motherhood again. Things have changed dramatically. And I know that there are other women out there who are feeling the same way. So with e-commerce and the development of the internet, I went that route. I said, you know what? I have skills and abilities. My husband happened to be in IT and web development at the time. And it was a perfect match. And I could stay home and do it from home. And what I found out was that I loved working with other women who were in my same position. They had corporate careers, decided to stay home with their family and their children, but they've created something phenomenal and amazing. Most of them with design lines. So I, being the e-commerce end, was selling their products, and we were promoting each other. And it ended up being a beautiful relationship.
Was Pinterest
No.
around then?
No,
No.
Facebook wasn't even around then.
Okay.
So we developed our e-commerce store through a lot of email marketing and through editorials, through magazines. So that's how we grew our business. The website stuff didn't even come out till about 4 years later.
What year was
Facebook.
this?
2006.
Oh,
Mhm.
Shopify wasn't around, like Sears, yeah.
Nope.
None of
We
these
were-
easy tools.
Sears and Roebuck.
None of it's easy.
Sears
but,
and
you know.
Roebuck was around, but it wasn't easy, right? And people were still afraid to shop online, right? You had to really convince them that you were credible to be able to shop online, and we were able to do that. Took time. It wasn't an overnight thing, but in 2012, we ended up opening a brick and mortar as well as our online store because things were going so well, and we just it was a beautiful thing. It just really was beautiful.
I think that's really admirable because, being somewhat familiar with Shopify and some of these other tools, I mean, you kind of get into something. I want to sell something online. The blueprint's there.
Yeah.
Now, right? I mean, there's gonna be how-to videos. It's not dummy proof, but I mean, much more so
There's a
than
whole
when you were
lot.
trying to figure out everything on your own.
We did, and it was trial and error a lot of times. I mean, one of the first mistakes that we made was going with a platform that we thought was inexpensive and would be quick to get up. But what happened is we grew so quickly that we ended up having to redo our platform and move everything to a new platform. So as we were growing, we were having these growing pains and learning about, selling on the internet, learning about how to get our voices out there in front of not as many as there are now, definitely, but how do we get to page one of Google? Because Google was a thing and keywords were a thing. And that was really kind of where we focused. That and the editorials. We paid attention to the editorial calendars for the big publications. And when they had an opportunity, they were going to do a fall event or a fall spread, we would contact them and we'd say, hey, we have a perfect product. We'd love to send you something. And they'd say, yeah, well, I need it by tomorrow. Well, that meant $75 in overnight shipping, right? So you do it. You give them free product. Maybe you get an editorial, maybe you don't. But when you do, it was amazing because your ROI just went up. And everyone at the time said, if you don't have a website, we can't put you on our magazine because that was what was coming up. They realized internet shopping was where they needed to be.
wow.
What gave you faith in that at that time? Was it your husband being kind of in that world, going through your mind?
I think it was a couple of things. I had past retail experience, in my younger years. I was in organizational development, so I had that. I am a big picture person naturally. So being able to look at something as a big picture and kind of reverse engineering it, I think is one of my skill sets. And so I think that skill and my husband's capabilities just made me feel like I can do this. Plus, I was a mom. I knew what was going on in the world of, infants to, at the time, 10 years old. I knew what moms were having troubles with and what they were looking for.
So that bought you some authority. I mean, I would imagine,
Absolutely.
right? With your target market there.
Absolutely. Yep.
And people they're successful because they see a need and they feel that need, right?
Absolutely.
And so you now coming out of that role, working in the court system, and now you have 3 kids.
Yeah.
And one's a little bit younger, right? 10 years younger. And you see this need that other parents and especially moms are getting into. Talk to us a little bit about that transition into a brick and mortar because, a lot of people nowadays don't do that.
Yeah.
It's not a big thing because your brick and mortar is your website. And you guys work from your house now. Your house is your brick and mortar.
We do.
So why did you get out of the brick and mortar business in California when you moved to Hendersonville?
Well, a couple things. To answer your first question is, we went from being an online store, went through the recession of 2008, and we came out on top. A lot of stores were closing. A lot of people were losing their businesses, their homes. We were continuing to grow, and the reason that happened is because we knew who our demographic was. We were a luxury brand store, And our customers were not as affected. They weren't tightening their belts like a lot of other people. So we could continue to do business and continue to thrive. So that was the first thing. Then when we decided to open up our brick and mortar, we opened up in an area that was a very exclusive, boutique-y, other independent businesses. So there wasn't another business around like us. So we knew in Orange County, California, that's where we were, we knew that our demographic was there. They were going to be willing to shop and they had the money to do so. So that was why we opened up our brick and mortar. An opportunity became available, looked at it, because initially we weren't looking. The opportunity, we saw it. We said, that's something I think that we can do and do it well. And so we opened up a brick and mortar.
There's a famous show or something about Orange County, isn't there? Like Housewives or something?
Like 100 of them?
Something like that. Housewives of Orange County, yeah.
Or Motorcycles of Orange County?
A little bit of both.
All the above?
The Housewives on motorcycles.
Yep, that's a classic.
That's it.
That's Tulpa's favorite, actually.
It's a winner. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
So how long did the brick and mortar store run for?
Yeah, so that started in 2012, and then in 2014 we moved here. So I closed the brick and mortar, still had the online store was still operating the entire time. And I thought that what I was going to do was open a brick and mortar here. So when I got here, we didn't know anyone. We made the choice to move here because there was, again, another opportunity. We talked to our children who, and at the time, Sage was going to go in, she was just starting college. Quentin was going to be a junior in high school, and Vaughn was going to be in third grade. And when my husband's company opened a manufacturing plant in Goodlettsville, they said, "Hey, do you guys want to go out to get Tennessee?" And I was like, "What are you, crazy?" I was
The hills
like,
of
"No,
Tennessee? What?
What's in Tennessee? Cows?" Honestly, that was my
There's no famous shows there.
that was my mindset. I'm like, no, I don't want to go. So a year went by, and finally, I said, okay, let's just look. Let's see what's going on out in Tennessee. And I was like, wow, okay, there's some good things happening out here, right? Specifically here in like Sumner County, Nashville. And so as we started looking more and more, I realized that, okay, there's good schools. There's really good economic development, which was really important to me. The demographic was looking good. And then we started looking at houses. And we're like, okay, my little 1,670 square foot house compared to a 3,500 square foot house, cheaper? Really? More land, schools are still good. So we're like, why not? Why not just do it? And we talked to the kids, and they were all on board, which if they were not, we wouldn't have done it.
And see, that's what's interesting as a father of three. I think about telling Emery that we're going to move from North Carolina to Tennessee, and she cried every day. Mm-hmm. So why?
And you still did
and
it.
We, you notice how I'm bringing our margarita here, so Dad of the Year. But tell me, what's the mindset of your kids at this point? We're leaving everything that we've known here since Sage was born, now in college, all my friends and everything. I mean, why?
Well, here's the funny thing about Sage. Now, Sage was getting ready to go to college in Arizona. When she found out that we were seriously thinking about coming here, she said, I don't want to be here, 2,000 miles away from you guys. So she decided to come with us. She was like, I want to be with my family. I mean, we are a very tight, close-knit family. And so when she decided that she wanted that, we said, that's fine. Now you're going to miss out on a semester of school. You're going to have to catch up. And she did it. I mean, she did, she's like, I'm coming with. And it was just a really good thing for all of our children. It took a little bit of adjusting, and I will say Sage and I probably adjusted the slowest, but we adjusted, and now we both love it. I mean, Sage has her beautiful 6-year-old son, her fiance, a good life. We have a great business. Our middle son he's an engineer for Lee Company. Our youngest is a senior in high school, is doing at a magnet school, one of the top-rated schools in the United States. It's just has worked out beautifully.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So when you came here, the e-commerce store was still, that's what you were doing when you came
Yeah.
here? Right. And how long did that run for after you moved here?
So when I moved here, I didn't know anyone. And I was like, I need to know who's who, what's going on. So I actually, on Facebook, because it was a thing now, I put something out on Facebook in one of the HIP groups, and I said, hey, I'm new to the area, business owner, woman business owner. I want to know other women business owners. Does anybody want to meet for coffee? I expected maybe a couple of people to say yes. We had over 20 something people say, yes, we want to meet for coffee. A couple weeks later, I said, come in my home. I'll open up my doors. Let's have coffee. Let's talk. Let's just get to know each other. That has now resulted into Sumner Women in Business. That first 13 people in my living room, those women said, I want to keep this going. How do we do that? I said, let's just do it.
Which is through the Hendersonville Chamber of Commerce, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So at the time it started, it was
mine.
not.
Yep. It was strictly something that I was like, I want to do this. I feel like I need to be surrounded by other women professionals, and I need to know what's going on. Well, that actually is what resulted in where we are now with Navarro Creative Group, because as women started to know what I did with my business, online, social media, the website, people were asking me for support and for help. So I would help them, no charge. It was just something that I realized there are so many business owners who know nothing about that. I mean, we weren't really, raised in the digital world, most of us, because we were old school, right? We grew up without all that stuff. And they didn't know what to do with their businesses. So when they would ask me, I would be like, fine, I'll help you. Eventually somebody said, can I just pay you to do it for me? And I didn't know what to say. I was like,
well, now what were you doing at the time? Because Rick was Rick still at the plant?
Rick worked at the manufacturing plant. He was the director of IT and website design.
And so you were
marketing.
Just trying to grow in the community and start your brand.
I wanted to have a place for my store, and I didn't know where to go. I didn't know, where would the right place be for my high-end baby children's boutique. And so I needed to know people and just hear from them. And that was why I started Sumner Women in Business, because if I was going to bring my store here, I needed it to be successful.
So that's a very interesting switch in mindset, going from, I'm going to have a boutique and a boutique or whatever store to, I'm going to run people's marketing and campaigns and it was that kind of stuff.
I call it a happy accident because it wasn't what I had planned. I had planned to open another brick and mortar store while running the online store. But when somebody asked me if I could help them, I was like, yeah, sure. And they're like, hey, can I pay you? And I'm like, okay, I don't know. Let me go back and even, talk through this. Do I have the capacity to do it? I was still raising, 2 kids at home. And do I really want to do this? But I love helping other business owners. That is something that is an integral part of who I am. So when she and I got back together after 2 weeks, I said, yes, here's what I'll charge you. And I was doing it by the hour. I said, if I'm going to do your social media, here's what it's going to cost per hour. If I'm going to look at your website and, edit it, here's what it's going to be. And that resulted for her in some growth and some good things happening. And she started referring other people to me. Now, I didn't have a business at this point. She was just paying me kind of, on the side, right? And so as that started happening, and naturally it started growing and more people needed help, I realized, hey, I'm being led to something more. I'm being led in a different direction, and I needed to listen. Now, it took me a year to really listen because I'm stubborn that way, and it wasn't in my plan, but I finally decided, hey, you know what? If I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it well, and that's when I decided I'm going to sell everything in my boutique, and I'm going to go full force with marketing.
It's really interesting. That story is like really similar to a lot of people we have on the podcast. I think about Michael, he just stumbles on Starbucks, right? It's just really interesting how that works sometimes, where you just kind of stumble in these happy accidents, and now you're extremely successful. You were awarded by the Chamber of Commerce. Can't think, I'm blanking on it right now.
Yeah, it's one of the top 5 small businesses.
Top 5 small businesses.
I got 22 most influential women.
Yeah, that's right. Most influential woman. So, and that banquet is amazing. So you started with 13 women 7 years ago, and like there was 150 women at that banquet or
250
something.
women.
250. It's amazing.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah. It is phenomenal. It just tells you, though, that there's a need and a desire for what we do. And if we listen, and I truly think that this is one of the things that, business owners, when they do things well, it's because they're listening. They're anticipating what's next. They're never staying stagnant in their today. It's always about what's going on next year? What's going, and I'm not even talking about next month. I mean, I'm already looking at 3 years from now. Where do I want to be in 3 years from now? And how am I going to get there?
I think that's
Perfect
one of the,
nugget right there, Brian. There you
tell
go.
me if you agree, Wendy. I feel like one of the coolest things about this area are people's receptiveness to the message that you put out on HIP,
Yep.
whichever HIP channel it was. So all the success you just mentioned, definitely by virtue of having you involved and at the helm.
well,
I mean, I don't want to limit that, but people's receptiveness to that, their desire to get involved, their desire to want to step out and see somebody else succeed, be a part of that success. I mean, I just think people from here are just either from here, like Brian, or people that have moved. I don't know if there's a gravitational pull or whatever to this area, that there's an exceptional amount of people like that.
Yeah.
That are open to that growth.
It's a great area, and it is continuing to grow. I think that's what I really love about it, is that it's progressive, but smartly progressive.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like chaotic, where people are just throwing things everywhere. It's being done very well and smartly, and I think that is very appealing to me because it makes it more, I'm able to better equip myself for success that way.
Definitely.
You had mentioned that you like helping businesses
Yeah.
thrive, specifically women. Was there somebody in your life that was that model to you, and that's why you have that philosophy in life? Or
Yeah, actually, it's going to be, the cliche, my mom.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my mom was an incredibly smart, strong woman. She went to the Navy when she was 19 years old. She was the head of the Women's League of Women Veterans and for the state of California. She was always doing more to help other people. And just her strength alone, I mean, let me give you an example. When my brothers and I were very young, 3 under 3, okay, my dad was deployed to Vietnam. My mom was alone. She was going to USC to get her master's. She was raising 3 children. She was working. I mean, that's a lot on your plate. Yet she did it. She did it with grace. She did it so that we never felt that we were ever abandoned or that we didn't have a parent in our life. And so knowing that the family core was number one, everything that she did was to better the family core. But it was also what she needed for herself. And then we recognize that, you can't be stagnant in life to satisfy somebody else. You have to be continuing to grow.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, good job, Mom.
Incredible.
My mom was the first female deputy of Swain County, so I kind of think of that like in the 1970s, right? Early 1970s. Yep. Her uniform, which is kind of crazy today thinking about it, was a mini skirt, and she kept her gun and handcuffs in a purse.
Yeah, how crazy is that?
You wouldn't see that now, right? Like,
let me go run after that.
Yeah. It's just kind of crazy how that world was, but you had to persevere.
Yeah.
At that time.
Yeah.
Especially. So that's the influence that you saw. You saw that every day. That's a pretty amazing story.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. She was she was an amazing person. And my dad was fantastic because he was never threatened by her success. He was successful in his own right. He was a career Marine, 24 years. So hoo-ah,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
how old were you before you realized that influenced you that much? Because I feel like a lot of people, myself included, when you grow up, it's just your mom and dad, right? You don't know any better. But at some point it hits you where it's like, wow, like this really had a lasting effect on me. Was there a moment in your life?
My parents always involved us in what they were doing. And I think that we got to see things. They helped build other businesses as well. And by seeing what they were doing and seeing the results of the work that they put into the community, I think we recognized that, but we didn't know how to identify it or how to tag it. So I recognized it, but I don't think it was until I was older when I was able to tag it that, that had such an impact on my life with who I am and what I do now. So, and just as a side note, my 2 brothers and I were all adopted. So we're all adopted from different parents. So that was another thing. Yeah.
Incredible.
That's awesome.
So appreciate that glimpse into what's made Wendy. I mean, that's awesome.
Now are your parents still around? Or
They're not. They passed away. My mother, unfortunately, passed away from complications with breast cancer in 2006. So right when we were starting our store.
I bet she'd be so proud.
Yeah, that's what my family always says, and it's great to have the reassurance from my family and friends. Yeah.
So you're getting some great validation. You're helping people hourly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, take us through kind of the evolution after you're getting some great feedback
Absolutely.
here. They're referring you out because you're doing a great job and everything. How did you continue to grow here?
So I decided I was going to stop doing the boutique. I needed to really focus on what I wanted to now do, knowing I could help more people. So as I said, I'm going to pull the brakes on this, and I'm going to really go forward with the marketing. I told my family, I told my husband, I said, this is where we need to be. And knowing the environment and knowing that e-commerce was going to continue to grow, we always had faith that was never going to go away, honestly. So we said, this is where our opportunity is. Again, opportunity, I think, is the prime word in my growth. And as we started, taking on new clients, we also recognized that, well, there are some clients that are not the best fit. Right? You can't be everything to everyone. And although I like to say yes to a lot of things, I started realizing the importance of being able to say no. And so as we found our niche, or we found our passion, point, that's when things were able to really develop. And we started growing, and it got to a point where in 2017, I brought Sage on board as our social media manager at the time. And she had mentioned, she was accepted into the radiology school, and she had was supposed to go downtown to do her, her internship or her residency. And she said, Mom, this isn't what I want to do with my life. And, Rick and I sat down with her and we said, whatever you need to do, we're supporting you. We'll be there for you. We said, what do you want to do? Because she had been working with us part-time at that point. She said, I want to work with you, and I want to grow this family business. And we said, yeah, come on.
How
let's
cool
do
did
this.
that feel?
It was amazing. And I was secretly hoping that she was going to say that, because she's so amazing at what she does.
Is there any push or subtle hints that you were kind of putting out there to her?
No, I don't know. Maybe, but I tried to be kind of keep that in, because I didn't want to influence her decision. I wanted it to be her decision. It couldn't be Mom pushing her to do something, because then if it backfired and she wasn't happy with it, then it would be Mom pushed this on me. It really needed to be her. So I had to be very careful and kind of keep, to myself. I would tell my husband, I'd be like, oh my gosh, I really want her to make sure that, have her come work for me. And when she decided she wanted to, I was like, this is phenomenal. This is going to be
maybe
amazing.
it was that affirmation of that daily just hope and prayer that kind of got her there, just inside.
Yeah, it could be, there's power in prayer, that's for sure. So, but as we, brought her aboard 2017, I was able to take on more business. I was doing the websites. She was doing the social media. My husband would do the tweaking for things that I didn't know how to do, because websites were, complicated. They're not, we don't do the drag and drop stuff, right? We're really building a personalized website. So then as that started growing in 2019, and I had been having this conversation. Now I did have this conversation with my husband. I said, look, you are so great at what you do. I can't grow this business without someone like you, but I can't afford you. I can't afford you. I need you to work with me. I need you to work for me. So I told him this over and over again, because I recognized that the only way I was going to grow this business would be to have his skill set and his many years of expertise. And so finally, in October 30th, Sage's birthday of 2019, so it's 3 years ago, he resigned from his job and started working as a partner in Navarro Creative Group.
Wow.
And before we continue, just elaborate what that skill set is that Rick brings to the table.
Oh, he's a master web designer and SEO strategist.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So up until 2019, I don't want to go back too far, but sounds like you made all the right moves. Was there anything between that period of that e-commerce store in California to 2019 where you thought you had something figured out, but it didn't work out and you had to
I think that I think the biggest thing that I had to overcome was saying yes. because there's a lot of people who want help and want support, but you can't help people who aren't willing to help themselves. And that's one thing that we had to learn to identify. Is this person seriously wanting to grow a business, or is this a hobby for them? And if it's a hobby, that's great. That can be a hobby, but I can't be involved in a hobby. I have a family that we're supporting, and I want this business to grow. So I had to learn how to say no and to identify where those people were going to be that were my prime candidate for a partnership in business.
I think that's like in any business, is that 80-20 rule,
Mm-hmm.
where 80% of your clients are giving you 20% of not necessarily grief, but maybe that's the part that you don't want in your business. So if you're trying to grow it and be a respectful business, you need to kind of weed out that 80% that's not going to get you where you need to be, right?
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
You have to. And that comes not only with people who are clients, but people who, want to partner with you, right? You have to choose the right partners. And so, you'd have people coming up to you saying, hey, I want to do this for you. I want to do that for you, and I'd be like, okay, well, first of all, let me hear what you have to say and let me see some of your work. And if their work was, again, more hobby-like and they didn't have a serious portfolio, I'd be like, I can't do that because that puts my business in jeopardy and my reputation is everything. So again, having to say no, whether it's a client or a partner, you have to learn when to say no.
So at this point, you're more, it's that criteria than a certain type of business that somebody's in
At that
y'all
point,
are working with.
Mm-hmm. At that point, because it was really, we were focused on small business. We did a lot of work with, independent, mom and pop shops. And then as we started growing and as our expertise started growing, and also bringing Rick aboard because he had 25 years in material handling experience, I recognized that, again, there's opportunity there. So using his skill set and his knowledge in that industry space, we recognized, and this really was just probably a year ago when I finally had that aha moment, because we were just going. And finally it was like, we have a couple of really great clients in that space. And it seems to be a sweet spot for us. I think we need to focus on that. And so that's when we started saying, let's focus on this material handling, manufacturing, industry space, and let's see how that goes. And it's been going really well. And the reason for that is, again, because of his experience. He talks the talk. He knows the language. And we know the process. We have processes now that we have put in place to not only do like website designs and social media, but we truly sit down, listen to their goals, and reverse engineer, kind of how I did it with our business, reverse engineer where they want to be and how we're going to get them there. So we help them through so many different aspects of their business. And that means sometimes, I'll give you a great example. Yesterday or this morning, I think I was on a demo for a trucking company that we work with, logistics company that we work with, and looking at a demo for some software that we think it would be really great for them to implement to get them to the next stage of their business. So that's the kind of stuff that we are able to do for our clients because we have such great relationships with them.
When you go through and you're not selecting businesses, but when you go in this phase where you're in this material side, industrial, how do those clients come to you? Is it referral based from them? Or what does that look like? Because there's only so many here in the Nashville area.
Well, yeah, it was the very first one was referral based, and that was somebody who actually was a friend of a friend who had said, "Hey, do you know anyone?" And she referred him to us, and they interviewed us 3 times against other national accounts, and they finally said, "You know what? We want to work with you guys." So we've been working with them for 2 years. I think it is.
And they're out of Nashville or
Minnesota.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're out of Minnesota.
And that was a referral.
That was a referral. Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's a great referral.
It was a great referral. And the partnership with them has been phenomenal and really amazing to work with them. Now, I know a whole lot about pneumatic conveying that I never knew about before in my life. Didn't even know the word existed, right? But I think that's one of the fun things for me too, is that I'm a lifelong learner. And when I get to hear some of these things and learn about these businesses and be able to speak their language, I get excited. I'm like, hey, I can talk their language and I know what they're saying. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, speaking another language, honestly.
Yeah.
So these aren't obviously all new startup
No.
companies. So when some of them come to you, it's like, we need to revamp what we're doing, or we're in a tough spot and we just need a fresh set of eyes.
Yeah, that's what this one was. They'd been in business for 30 years. They were successful in their own right. However, what happened was they became very corporate-y in their own words, and they needed to get back to the basics of being relational. And so our goal for them was to really make sure that the messaging and the branding and the website and everything that we were pulling together for them expressed that they were approachable. That even though they are a big company working with literally Fortune 100 companies, they are still approachable for the smaller businesses who need their support.
Wow. So you're really going in there and creating a new culture.
Yes. We're working with them we're not creating the culture. We're getting the message out for them for the culture that they are wanting to create.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
And that changes all the time. I mean, for a company like that was doing the same thing potentially for 30 years, they've probably missed a lot of phases through that, where you got to stay on top of that and know what, I don't say the new trends are, but what businesses are doing now to attract talent. Or
that's exactly right. And so that's, we meet with them every week. On this particular company, we meet with them every week. Some businesses, we meet with them every month. But because of the way that they want to grow and how quickly they're looking at growing, we meet with them every week and we talk about, hey, what's going on in the business? What are some of the new things out there? And then we will go to them and we keep Google alerts up on our phones, and we're like, okay, industrial engineering, okay, manufacturing, what's out there? And we'll send them articles. Hey, we think you might be really interested in this. Or, hey, there's a show about, in Las Vegas about this. What do you guys think about maybe having a presentation there? And so we're working with them as a partner to really grow their business. So it's not always the building a website, doing their social media. It's more than that. It goes much deeper than that because it's relational. And when we can help them and be a guide in many ways, that's when the beauty really happens, because we become part of the team. And that's exactly what they call us. They call us part of their team.
I'm sure the relationship with each company is different, but do they, some of them almost use you as like their marketing department, or like a fractional type
marketing
of relationship?
Yep. Fractional CMO. Yep. That's a lot of our companies use us that way. And I actually like it that way, because it is about relationships that when we're doing work with them. There are some businesses where we are only building a website for them, and that happens. But my goal, if I'm being honest, is really to get everyone to be in a position where we are their CMO.
And that bodes well for you, because you actually get probably some decision-making authority when it comes to that, right?
Do.
So you can move a little bit quicker.
Yeah, we actually do. They look to us, instead of, them saying, well, here's what we need. They look to us and say, hey, what do we need to get here? And that is where every business, I think, when you're a service-oriented business, should be. We're the professional in this area. Let us help you there. I know nothing about engineering a pneumatic conveyor. You do your thing there.
I don't even think I could say that word. Not even going to try.
Please don't try.
I'm not going to. So you said something there, though, that I think is really key to all of our businesses is relationship building. Mm-hmm. So I've known you for quite a while. I moved here in 2020, and you are really good at building those relationships. I mean, you got 250 women that go to to the luncheon for the women in business in Sumner County, something that you started. So you've really created this relationship building, and that's how you've built your business. Did that come natural to you, to building those relationships, or is that something you've had to work on over the years?
No, it comes natural to me. It's a gift, honestly. It's not something I try to do specifically, and I'm not going to claim credit for it. It's just something that I do naturally. And I think that everyone has a gift, and I've recognized that is my gift. So I'm going to use it, and I'm going to, make the best of it. If I can, put two people together because they're a good fit, it's great. It's great for me and it's great for them, because I know that they're going to appreciate it. But also, I want to see people succeed. I truly want to see people, doing what they love in life. And if somebody comes to me and says, hey, I need marketing, and after I interview them, because I'm interviewing them as much as they're interviewing me, I think, you know what, you're not where you need to be yet for marketing. I will refer them to somebody else where I think they should be. And I've done that on a number of occasions.
But you probably met that person through relationships.
Through relationships. Yep.
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 So have you seen a big shift in your business, not like the amount of business you're doing, but the way you do it since COVID? How has that affected
Gosh,
kind of your
COVID
world?
was amazing for us, to tell you the truth, because people were so used to doing business the same old, right? But when COVID hit, everyone needed to do business differently. They needed to be found by their customers or their clients, and the only way to do that was through the internet. So when people recognized, oh my gosh, I don't have a presence, or my presence sucks, I need to figure this out, our business grew. And we were able to really help a lot of businesses sustain. Some we couldn't, but a lot of them, that we worked with, when they were seriously focused on making that switch, we were able to help them.
I really feel like during 2020, you weeded out the people that just were fixed mindset, right?
Mm-hmm.
They just were not going to learn about anything new. And then the ones that adapted thrived.
Oh, yeah.
And so you guys adapted. You're like, okay, well, let's learn how we can help these businesses really get out there and change their mindset. And, you see that in the insurance industry, whereas I'm a relationship person, I want to sit down with somebody and review their insurance. Well, you can't sit down with anybody,
right?
But you could do virtual.
Yep.
And so now we have these platforms where you can meet everybody virtually, and the agents that didn't, they just went out, and then the people that did thrive through 2020.
Yep.
So is that kind of what you saw, where you had this fixed versus learning mindset?
Yeah, I mean, I knew that, and it's always been this way, though. If you're a business owner, you cannot be fixed mindset. You have to be able to ebb and flow where it's needed. The economy will always ebb and flow. It changes, and you need to be able to adjust accordingly. So when it's kind of like, if you think about this, and this is a great analogy, the QR code was on its way out before COVID hit, right? Well, now everyone has a QR code. And why is that? Because everyone realized that you convenience, number one, but you have to be able to send them to where you want them to go in order to get the information that they're looking for. So that's the same thing with a business. You need to know what the consumer is looking for. What is the future telling you need to do differently now so that you're there before it even happens?
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned the QR code. We were at dinner the other day, and a friend was like, I'm sick of using my phone to look at a menu. I'm like, you have your phone out anyways. Just scan it and run with it. Like, you're fixed on the old menu style. Just use your phone.
Everybody has it on their phone.
Back.
Exactly.
So QR was going out? I didn't
It was, yeah. People were like, oh, QR codes, no big deal. Well, I remember in my store, when I opened my store in 2012, we had QR codes on our window clings on our storefront, right? And people are like, why are you doing that? I'm like, well, because somebody can stop by, scan it, and see my entire website. Whatever, I was like, okay, I'm doing it anyway. So
yeah, well,
now you're watching TV and you have to like pause and rewind to catch it
right?
on the commercial to pull it up.
Yeah, let's do that. What was that website again?
That's right. Isn't that just an example of how fast you think things change? But
yeah,
it's been around since 2012.
At least.
I'm proud because we put it on a flyer the other day for our B3 event. Like, we think we're doing something slick.
Yeah.
Right?
I just got them made for my Google page, and I've never used it before 2020. Never used. I didn't even.
Oh, you guys
recognize
are
it.
Maybe it was a West Coast thing. Everything starts on the West Coast.
Right.
It just now got here, so we're not really that far.
When I was with North Carolina,
it was an OC Housewives thing.
There you go. See, that was it.
We're just going to tell ourselves that. So, Wendy, what? I know you've kind of niched down a little bit now, but what do you think a lot of people are getting wrong from a marketing standpoint? Mm-hmm. And a lot of our audience might what us three do. So, don't talk to us three, but positions like ours. What are people getting wrong that you see?
Well, the first thing is, I think people look at marketing as an expense, and it is not an expense. It's an investment in yourself and in your business. And when people look at it as an expense, the first thing to go in a lot of businesses, especially those that are a little bit more bootstrapped, is their marketing. Well, in Forbes, they have, their data tells us that those people who do not pull back on their marketing during a downturn, they will get about 5% of the market if they don't slow down. So that means that, and that's not just 5% increase in their profit, that's 5% of the market. Okay, so that's a lot. That's a big figure. So I think that's the first thing. Businesses can't look at their marketing as an expense. It has to be an investment, but you have to do it smart, right? You need to talk to more than one company, find out who fits with you, kind of who jives with you, and what their plans are and their processes are. Like our processes for maybe a smaller business would be, let's start with one or two things. Let's get that down and really foundational. Make sure that's working really well for you. Then let's start bringing in other things, right? Whereas where I have a larger client with a larger budget, I can bring more stuff in at one time. But I don't want to do that for somebody who is, has a budget that we really do need to stay in. Because if I tell them spend all your money now, they'll not be successful, and then they'll blame it on me, right? So let's make sure that they understand the metrics. Let's look at the analytics and show you how this is working so that you know what the next steps will be. So I also think that talking about that is, you can't look at marketing as a magic wand, right? It's not going to happen in 2 months. It's not going to happen in 6 months. Your website doesn't even get indexed in the search engine results pages or the search engines for 6 months to a year. I mean, truly, it takes that long for organic marketing where you're not paying for anything to get started, right? So if it takes me 6 months to a year, do I have that kind of time to wait? And if I don't, what else do I need to do in order to get more exposure? Well, then that's where you have to invest in your paid marketing. And that might be Google ads, Facebook ads, things like that.
So like the biggest thing there is tracking it too, right?
Oh gosh, your analytics. If you are not tracking your results and your metrics, you don't know what to do. You don't know the next step. It definitely is your map, right? And you have to follow the map in order to know where to turn next. Because if something's not working, do you really want to continue to pour money into that? No. You want to figure out why it's not working and where you need to pivot. And I think that, a lot of, again, another thing that small businesses do that, it just gets me. And I'm like, you're doing it wrong, is that they try to do things themselves. And when you're trying to do things themselves, how do you operate your business well and try to be your own marketing company at the same time? You can't do it. You just can't. That's why big businesses have an entire marketing department so that they can focus on the operations of the business.
Yeah. If I could ask you one more question, I don't want to put you on the spot, but us three talk about, ourselves in terms of, I'm one of 12 realtors that we're commodities at the end of the day. Sure. All three of us that you're looking at right here. Brian's special. He's a little bit more unique, but
he's special. You've always been special, Brian.
Yeah. But the B word, the brand word, gets tossed around a lot to separate yourself or differentiate yourself. But I think it's such a confusing concept to most people. If you could simplify the approach to get somebody started in establishing, hey, if I'm going to build a brand as an insurance agent or as a mortgage lender, whatever that might be, where do they start? Like, what do they answer for themselves there?
I think one of the things is to know what really drives you. What makes you tick? What makes you want to continue to do what you're doing? We get into business for a reason, but what is that reason? So if you know what that is, if it's because you truly, truly want to see other people be successful, whether it's, mortgages or selling homes or insurance, what are those stories that have really, stuck with you that make you feel good about what you do? And then you need to be able to share those stories. It really is the story of each one of you that will get and attract the right person to you. So you need to be able to tell your story and what makes you tick. It's kind of like that, they say the 60-second elevator pitch, right? Well, you need to be able to have that down. And you need to be able to give that information to somebody right away so that they are compelled by your story. But then more interestingly, how are they going to work with you? I want to work with you because what you said just triggered something in me. What does that mean? So you have to be able to tell your story.
That's awesome advice and very, very intelligent, but simply put. I think we overstate that a lot. I mean, it becomes so convoluted that people don't know where to start. So I appreciate the simplified explanation.
So what's the goals for Navarro Creative Group in the future? Are you guys hiring a lot of people? Are you looking to increase, your span over the globe? What's going on?
Yeah, so I don't think I want to go international. National is great with me. I really love being here in the United States and doing business with my friends here in the U.S. But yeah, we want to, like I said, we have a 3-year plan. My plan is that Rick and I are going to be able to, you step away from the actual work. Sage is taking over the department for social media, and it is her responsibility now to grow that particular department even more than it is. She's now the director of social media. Our youngest son happens to want to be in marketing, so he interns with us, as well as we are sending him to classes for sales and for, he wants to be a pitch man. Well, he's only 17 years old. This guy has, no fear, right? He doesn't care if somebody says no. It's like, oh, whatever,
That's
so
awesome.
I want him to learn how to do this well and be able to say, here's what we can do for you. So, and then we also have partners, like I said, where we can, refer work and, or bring them in to help us with projects, so it's knowing the capacity that we have internally and being able to bring the right people in. So I am looking for an office administrator. So if you guys know anyone, I am looking for somebody part-time to start with. But, that's something I know that we need because Sage, Rick, and I are all at capacity with what we can do. But I want to be able to step away from the actual everyday and really focus on the growth.
Yeah.
And that's my goal.
That's awesome.
Good for you. Get back to that visionary strength that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
The big picture.
Thank you.
Where can people find you?
So people can find us everywhere online.
Hopefully.
As any good marketing company
I
would
know, right?
say.
Yeah,
right?
could you imagine? Oh, you can find us on
Editorials.
You're like,
Right,
don't worry, we'll
editorials.
find you. We're that
Right?
good.
Yep.
In the
so
newspaper.
You can go, in the newspaper. You can go to Navarro Creative Group, NAVARRO creativegroup.com. We are on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and please read our blog. We do keep up with what's going on in the industry, and things are crazy, and they will continue to get even more crazy because digital marketing, it has evolved into something that is not, I don't want to say easy, but you have to know what's going on. So we try and keep up with that, and we try and put information out there on our blog so that people can have that information easily versus trying to figure out where to get it.
Can they sign up for your blog on your
Yes,
website?
it is. Yep.
Okay.
Sounds like a great resource.
Yeah, absolutely. Please use it. Seriously.
Are you up for some speed questions?
Yeah.
To take
Let's
us
do it.
out here.
Okay, let me get myself
All right.
positioned.
Get a drink of margarita. That's
Yeah,
looking a
let me
little
take a
full
drink.
over there. It's your
Yeah.
favorite drink after all.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Where is Wendy's happy place?
The beach.
Good answer.
Any
Yep.
particular beach?
Well,
Orange Beach.
Orange Beach.
Orange Beach, right? Well, we love Hilton Head, actually. On this coast,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, we love Hilton Head. Back home, it would be Monarch Beach in Laguna.
Okay.
Yeah.
You might have a tough time with this one because you seem pretty passionate about what you're doing. But if you weren't running your company,
Mhm.
what would you be doing?
Bleh. I don't have an answer. Honestly, I do love what I'm doing. And again, if I weren't doing this, what would I be doing? I would probably be the CMO for another company. Yeah.
Be a good fit.
Yeah.
Who is your hero or person you look up to the most?
Gosh, I have a lot, but I have to say, and again, cliche, my husband is phenomenal. He has grown up with nothing and has decided, he wanted to take a certain path away from what he grew up with and did that and did it strong. And he's an amazing family man and loves me to death. And he's my hero.
Yeah.
Kudos
Shout out
to
Rick.
to
Great
Rick
guy.
too, because Rick had a phenomenal transformation himself with his diet and exercise
Yeah.
and everything, and he lost how many pounds?
40 pounds.
40 pounds.
Yeah.
So good job, Rick. Kudos to
Yeah.
you, buddy.
Kudos, baby. Love ya.
You get a good Christmas gift this year.
What is the most impactful book or podcast? that
Oh
you-
gosh. Okay. So book is I have two of them, and one is a 7-figure agency. So for agency owners, it's an amazing book that helps you to understand how you're going to get yourself to 7 figures. That's my goal. To be honest with you, I want to be at 7 figures in 3 years. So that one is one of my favorites for agency owners. And then the E-Myth Theory Revisited is a book that every business owner or every person who wants to go into business needs to read.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Speaks to you wanting to step out of the day-to-day.
That's exactly right.
That's great. I can see that.
And then podcasts I like locally. There, Jason Duncan,
Mm-hmm.
and I think you guys know him. He's fabulous. I love listening to his. Yep, love listening to his podcast. And then of course you guys, right?
That wasn't a setup question,
right
but
now.
we'll take it. Well, Wendy, we appreciate you coming on today.
Thank you so much.
Navarro Creative
my
Group's
pleasure.
doing great things, been doing great things, and it's obviously all going to continue. And we're thrilled to have you in the community here.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you guys for having me on. I really do. I think you guys are phenomenal. I think that your collaborativeness is just the best example of how three people who came together can work together and do so much for the community and for your businesses. So thank you.
It means a lot coming from you. Thank you.
Means a lot.
All right, everybody. Well, thanks again for tuning in. Make sure you find us on the on Instagram, B3 Business Bonding and Beer, as well as What You Sipping On _B3. So we'd love it if you would follow us there. Pay attention to our upcoming events. Continue to tune in to our podcast here, where we introduce you to people like Wendy, who we think a lot of, and we think you might want to know too. And be sure to check us out at our events. As always, thanks to Brian Holloway with Black Fox Media, the guy making all this possible behind the camera. So we appreciate you, Brian. We appreciate all you guys. See you next time.
Cheers.
Cheers.